Where the Stars Fell. Inclusivity as twist? Listener Milo Katz recommends this audio drama for its take on gay and neurodivergent representation, something the show does, quote, exceptionally well. Inclusivity and conflict. In storytelling, it's often said that conflict is king. People are interested in clashes both big and small, external and internal, and range from interpersonal to multi-personal consequences. By that logic, it would seem that being inclusive implies less conflict. A writer can remove conflict from a character's journey because they don't want bad things to happen to them. Oftentimes, the result is an easy and simple path to the character's desire at the story's end. That's not what creator Newt Shadowcotty does with their audio drama. Inclusivity and conflict is handled well in the first episode. It's miscommunication and a character quirk combined that feels more like characterization than something from TV tropes. Instead of treating this urban, rural fantasy with mythical creatures as something like the myriad of children's literature, Shadowcotty goes the more realistic route. There are mythical creatures of the week, but the source of tension comes from the interpersonal conflict between Dr. Edison Tucker and in-world fantasy author Lucille Kensington, who are constantly butting heads. It's an odd couple situation and full of typical sitcom drama that it got old during the middle episodes. Some moments shined brighter than others, particularly those around stereotyping having the potential to harm someone, not just black and white. By the second to last episode, I was still waiting for something big to happen, even if it was only big to the characters in the story. Where the Stars Fell climax, a motivational twist? To say I enjoyed the last couple of episodes would be an understatement. Episode 7 more so than 8. I'll do my best to avoid spoilers, but the best way I can describe what happens near the end of the first season is to call a twist in motivation rather than plot. Character motivations don't change in the sense that the listener never knew the character's motivation at all. That can be done, but it helps to have a red herring motivation for it to work at all, even though it's hard to pull off well. One scene took this audio drama to the next level. The roughly 3 pages of monologue about Edwin's past left me speechless, engrossed in every word, like reading a good book that you can't put down. I thought I missed my flight at the airport listening to it for the first time. I was in the zone and Shadowcotty's performance was seamless. Whether there was editing involved, the flow of monologue is smooth yet bumpy when it needs to be for emotional value. I applaud Newt and their sensitivity reader for not equating autistic quirks with eccentric behaviors. It would have been so easy to make Lucille a carbon copy of Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory, something that is a point of contention for many people on the spectrum and those who support them. The character interactions between Lucille and Edwin are almost funny at times, yet the humor doesn't detract from the serious issues raised about mental health. The only thing keeping this first season from a 10 out of 10 are the middle episodes. Even still, the last 2 episodes definitely have qualities of a repeat listen rating. 9.5 out of 10 plus stars. Murphy, Cryptozoology Cops. Murphy comes recommended by the show's composer and sound designer Dennis Mowers. Murphy is a supernatural audio drama that might have an overarching plot, but the first 3 episodes are relatively self-contained. Episode 4 is out, but it takes almost 3 hours to get to some big plot point outside the episode's own story. That might turn some people off, others might not get that far. Monster Hunter Murphy. If Where the Stars Fell takes a serious yet charming look at cryptozoology, Murphy plays it straight all the way through, adding an epic feel to an often laughed-at field of study. Its blend of non-horror X-Files with some non-romantic urban fantasy elements make for an interesting counterexample of how to treat cryptozoology with a modicum of respect. The first episode, titled Pilot, is exactly that. It sets up the premise and characters, and it either keeps the listener wanting more or boring them for a little less than an hour. While I enjoyed episode 1, there were plenty of moments that I wish could have been sped up or skipped entirely. In the behind the scenes episode that premiered in between episodes 3 and 4, one of the writers said it was their first audio drama script. Law & Order, created by Dick Werewolf. Werewolf puns and Law & Order jokes aside, the second episode involves a werewolf. That may be a spoiler, but suspicions are placed in the first scene. The two werewolf suspects, Peter Bordeaux and Phyllis Berger, are definitely up to no good. Phyllis slithers his S sounds like a snake, and Peter's accent is either French, Eastern European, or both. It's inconsistent if you're paying close enough attention. Both fortunately and unfortunately, if one does give this their utmost attention, they'll find some plot holes in the form of why shoot a bullet at someone if you're just going to blow up the building. One doesn't leave a bullet for forensics to find unless the writer needs to move the plot along. This is what I feel happened the moment I gave this my full attention on second listen. Questions that a constable in the UK would think a little suspicious. Jack's refusal to believe that Peter or Phyllis might be a werewolf isn't the irritating part. I won't say who the werewolf is, but the episode makes it clear that Murphy thinks it's one of them. The frustrating part that didn't bother me until second listen was the questions of why someone reopened the case if it was closed, and they had a confession. Add in the fact that Jack and Murphy's digging reveals the truth about the killer being a werewolf and could have been avoided by not assigning them, or anyone else for that matter, to the case. A lot of things didn't add up that were outside the confines of the story's world. There may be a reason given that I missed, but it's either mentioned so briefly or not at all that it seems like an afterthought. Murphy 3. With blood in the title, you know there's vampires. If Murphy's episode 2 was a Jack-focused story, then episode 3 is all about Murphy and her past. Episode 4, according to its description, sees the group travel to Ireland to handle an Elliot-based story. At least I assume, as I haven't listened to it yet. I'm hoping episode 5 gets into the meat and potatoes of the series as a whole. Here in episode 3, we learned about what Murphy was trained to do. Like the episode before, I have questions. This time, more about blocking than inconsistencies in the plot. That is, where things are in relation to other people. The problem didn't start out at the beginning. Rather, it happened toward the end when Murphy's former Monster Hunter teacher, someone exits the car. I thought it was the teacher, yet later he's driven the car into a pond and committed a quadruple murder homicide. I had no idea what was going on until someone mentioned it a bit too late for my taste. Despite the complaints that may have answers to them, the sound design and music are what make this audio drama stand out. It's up there with shows like We're Alive in terms of production quality. For their first time creating an audio drama, this was more than a simple turn on the microphone and start recording. Props to everyone involved. Even if I have problems with how the story is unfolding, doesn't mean the story itself is bad. It's just noticeably neutral, which is also the rating. 7 out of 10 stars.